This is Joshua Hart here for Seconds Out. Today I'm delighted to somehow have found myself in the car with Eddie Hearn as we head to the public event for Pat Brown and welcome him to professional boxing.
An evening with. A lot of comments today as well. You really pushed the boat out today on Pat Brown, haven't you? And that's why, we signed him, because we believe in him. And, I'll keep getting the question, who's the next big star of British boxing? Who's the one we need to look out for? And I think the answer is Pat Brown. Exciting, popular, good-looking kid, speaks really well. He's got the pedigree for the amateurs and the Olympics. He's going to be filling arenas in Manchester, and I think he's going to be a massive star.
What was it that you sold to Pat Brown that was different to the other promoters and ultimately urged Pat Brown to put pen to paper with you guys rather than a Boxer or a Queensbury?
Yeah, it was obviously a red-hot race. Promoters throwing literally houses at Pat Brown. And I think when you look at the stars coming through, Pat is one of 4 Olympians that we're signing. Potentially the only British Olympian. And, you want a fighter that is going to captivate the audience. You want a fighter that you can build a narrative around, and you want a fighter that's going to be exciting. And you look at Pat, he's worked on the building sites. He's been a part of Moss Side Amateur Boxing Club for a long time. He runs the streets of Manchester, in terms of athletically. And, he's over Old Trafford. And you look at this city and he's dying out for another star. And I think Pat is going to be that guy. So it was important for us to win the race to sign him. And, we'll make sure we do a great job for him.
How quickly will Pat Brown be getting moved? I spoke to Sam Jones and he said if Pat Brown isn't a world champion in 2.5 years, then he's not been managed properly. What do you have to say to that?
Yeah, I think when you sign a fighter of Pat's calibre, particularly when you're talking about kind of GB guys, you need to make sure that they get to a certain level. You look at guys like Chev Clark, who was an Olympian. He's won the British title. He's fighting for the European title. He's done it without not necessarily breaking sweat, but he's done it real easily. And again, Chev's a guy that should be fighting for world titles soon. And Pat is, the same pedigree, obviously Olympian as well. So if Pat doesn't get to world level, I think someone's done something wrong. Look, you can get bad breaks in boxing, but as I said to Pat, he's got a wonderful opportunity now, and the opportunity is now just to go on and to walk the path that will be paved for him, and the path's right in front of him, and the only thing that's going to stop him is him not working hard enough or him not being good enough. And I don't believe either of those will come into play.
Just moving away from Pat, recently you said that Anthony Joshua may only have 1 year left in boxing. What fights can we see Anthony Joshua within that year?
I think he just wants the big fights. Who knows how long the career is going to go on for, but I think a year is going to give him 2 or 3 fights, and I don't think he's going to be around much longer than that, but who knows? For me, the fights that interest AJ is obviously the rematch with Daniel Dubois, and obviously the Tyson Fury fight, which, win or lose on December 21st, will always be compelling, but a victory for for Fury on December 21st would make that fight huge. It would be for the unified world heavyweight title.
Do you feel that in a position where Tyson Fury is to beat Alexander Usyk, do you feel, especially with what's been said between each other over the 2 years, do you feel he will offer Anthony Joshua a voluntary shot at the heavyweight world titles?
I hope so. I think the relationship between everybody is a lot better now. If he wins, I guess he could go into the old, I'm the unified champ, I'm the A side, I want this, I want that. They need each other still, because together they can make the biggest fight in world boxing. But, I think if he loses, he may disappear for a while, and it might be harder to make in that respect. So we'll see what happens December 21st.
And then, obviously, Fury has come out recently in an interview and made some comments regarding Anthony Joshua being very limited. How do you respond to those comments from Tyson Fury?
I think a very limited Anthony Joshua can beat Tyson Fury. That's what I think. I've always thought it. I think styles make fights, and it's a fight we believe we win. But, AJ's coming off his defeat. 1 minute you're hot, 1 minute you're not. That's just life. And, he's coming off a great Wilding destruction, a great Ngannou destruction, knockouts over Hellenius and wins against Franklin, and he's back, and then he gets beat by Dubois, and he's overrated and he's limited. So which one is it? Maybe we'll never know. But he's had a great career, and there's still a few chapters to write yet.
And just moving away from this, obviously, we know that Anthony Joshua versus Daniel Dubois 2 was going to be set for February 22nd, but for whatever reason, that's not going to be going ahead now. We're hearing reports of Daniel Dubois versus Joseph Parker. If that is to be the fight made next, how do you see that fight playing out?
I think it's a very competitive fight. I mean, Joseph has really earned his shot at a world heavyweight title. Obviously, he's a former world heavyweight champion, but wins against Deontay Wilder when there weren't many that wanted to fight him, and wins against Zhilei Zhang. Really back-to-back victories should be enough to get him that shot at the world title. So if he does fight Dubois, I think he's earned it. I think it's a very competitive fight. Joe's a very tough man. He's in the form of his life, shape of his life, and yeah, it's definitely a fight I'd love to see.
Just moving away from the heavyweights, a name that I'm sure, or a topic you're probably sick of hearing about now, and it's coming to an end, is Conor Benn. We know that you put a statement out recently on Twitter that said that he's been cleared by the NAPD. First of all, would you advise him to share the full verdict with the public?
No, I don't think he can. I think it's a confidential procedure. I don't think he's going to have any problem talking about what he can talk about. Some people say that it was based on jurisdiction. Total bollocks. It wasn't at all. There was a full hearing from the NAPD who looked at everything around the case, and Conor Benn won. I don't know what more he's got to do, but that chapter's over, and now he can move forward. And obviously you've got the Chris Eubank fight, you've got the Barrios fight, you've got plenty of options for Conor Benn, and we've just got to make the right pick accordingly.
Have you been able to see the full verdict?
No, I wasn't involved in the case. So I know Conor Benn's story because I've seen it and I've heard it and I've listened to it over the last 2 years. So I know what was put forward, and I'm glad that he's been fully cleared.
We know that when the statement was put out, the British Boxing Board of Control and UKAD had a 3-week window to appeal. I'm pretty sure that's coming close to an end now, that window. Do you expect them to appeal?
I don't know. That's over to them. I think for us, hopefully that draws a line in the sand and we can finally move on. It's time to move on. It's been over 2 years now, which is quite unique, but who knows.
And just lastly on this, will you or Conor Benn be applying to get him a new licence with the British Boxing Board of Control?
For me, if you're fighting in the UK, I'd always prefer you to be fighting on a British Boxing Board of Control licence, but there's many options available, and we'll have to see what way Conor goes.
I know I said lastly just there, but just one more. I interviewed Frank Smith over Zoom a couple of weeks ago, and one of the questions I asked him was, what has made this case so different to all other failed drug cases? Because I don't think, in my time of being a boxing fan anyway, I've never seen a case this big and get this much attention for such a long amount of time. What do you believe has been so different about it?
I think, the fact that it was around probably the biggest fight in British boxing at the time, Ben Eubank. Obviously, Conor Benn's got a huge name, huge profile. Obviously, his father was a great fighter. You've got me. You've got, the way that he handled some moments, I don't think was perfect, but there was a lot of emotion. The way that we handled some moments wasn't perfect. So, I don't know. Agendas, maybe. I mean, I don't think that justifies the intensity of what we've seen over the last couple of years. But like we say, ready to draw a line under it now and move on.
Talking about moving on, we'll move on from talking about it now. Last Friday, obviously, I know we saw Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano in a fight where we saw a very passionate version of yourself, especially post-fight. Just how delighted were you to see Katie Taylor defend those world titles?
So delighted. I mean, she means a lot to us, and there's nothing like an away win, right? So we're the A side, but we're really the away fighter, and it was so sweet because we've had a little bit of a bad run of very close fights not going our way. Madrimov against Crawford, particularly Bivol against Beterbiev, and when it's 95, 94, 95, you got the whole crowd against you, you got the promotion against you. I was just thinking we're not going to get it. And when I heard and still, there was a lot said during the fight as well, like a lot of emotion. You got MVP, Matchroom, we're just all desperate to win, and that was just a sort of culmination of buzzing for the victory, but also buzzing for Katie Taylor.
Just looking at that main event, obviously we saw Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson, a fight that, even though I'm a very young man, I still can't believe we're seeing Mike Tyson in a boxing ring professionally in 2024. Since then, we've seen a lot in the aftermath. In particular, we've seen the likes of Carl Froch, Artur Beterbiev and Daniel Dubois call out fights with Jake Paul. when you see names like that going and stooping down to someone of Jake Paul's ability level, what do you make of that?
I think some of it's just sometimes for a little bit of publicity, and other times probably just hoping they can get a massive payday in what would be a relatively straightforward fight. But Jake's a very smart guy. You know, he's not going to take a beating unless he gets a fortune to take it. That may come against Canelo Alvarez. Who knows? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that fight happened one day. But I don't see a Beterbiev or a Dubois fight happening. But you know, you never know in this crazy world.
I did an interview with Gareth O'Davies, I think last week on Zoom.
Love you, Gareth.
Into which we were talking about this situation that we've just spoke about, and he said that he believes Carl Froch would have a tough time with Jake Paul in the ring nowadays. What do you make of those comments from Gareth?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Carl was an all-time great. You know, he's a 168-pounder. Jake is a big lump, but Carl keeps himself fit. You know, you'd fancy him to be a big favourite in that fight.
I'm just going to ask a few different questions here, really, because I've always wanted the opportunity to have a bit more time to ask you a few different questions. So for yourself, obviously, being such a big role in boxing and playing such a big part, how does a day in the life of Eddie Hearn tend to look for yourself?
Depends where I am, really. You know, for me, I love being in the office when I can, and, you know, it gives me a chance to actually have a routine, because that's quite difficult to do when you're kind of living on the road or going from event to event to event. So, you know, if I'm in the office, might be, you know, trying to get a little bit of sleep, maybe dropping the kids to school, going to the gym, spending time with the team, planning, trying to get some sleep, trying to get back on a time zone. But then before you know it, you're off again. I mean, look at now, you know, last week we had no event, so that was nice to kind of be normal for a week. Now you've got Birmingham this weekend, massive fight with Sonny Edwards against Galaya Fire. Puerto Rico next weekend with Liam Paro, Richardson, Hitchens. Monaco the week after, and Saudi Arabia after that. So you're 4 weeks on the road. So I guess no week's the same. But, you know, on fight week, you've got obviously the media day and workouts on the Wednesday, presser on a Thursday, weigh-in on a Friday, Saturday fight night. So that's probably more like a normal week for me.
How do you deal with the, I guess you said, the travelling aspect? Because in my case, I could go on a train for 2 days in a row and I'll be absolutely knackered by the end of it.
I wish that was the only travelling I'd done. You know,
yeah,
I think that, I mean, firstly, you get used to it.
Yeah.
And you're so tired, you just sleep when you can. So, like, I don't land somewhere and then, I can't sleep, I sit up all night. I'm absolutely knackered. So as soon as I hit the bed, I'm asleep. Probably coming back's a little bit different as well. I think that, look, I'm lucky. I've got, you know, great life, great job. I love what I do. But probably the hardest part is sometimes you just don't fancy it. You know, you're tired and you don't really want. I mean, look, today's been a long day. You know, I was in the office at 8. Drove up to Manchester, done that big Pat Brown lunch. Now it's 7 o'clock. We're driving over to do an evening with Pat Brown. That'll finish at, I don't know, 8:30, 9. Get back to the office at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock. Get the car. You've got to be up in the morning where you got to be. Like, but when you're called upon to do something, you can't really just bin it off. Do you know what I mean? But that's just life, isn't it? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're a boxing promoter or you're a postman. I'm sure a lot of postmen wake up in the morning and go, fuck me, the last thing I want to do today is deliver the post. That's what you do, isn't it? You just get on with it and you get it done. So, never going to moan about it. There are a lot of people that have a lot tougher jobs than me. But, you know, the only thing, the biggest, challenge for me is just the tiredness. And that's why I try and stay as healthy as possible so that you can have the engine to keep going.
And just my last one, I suppose. A lot of people would probably look at you and say that you're living the dream and you're in a really good spot. What would be your advice to people who want to be, not necessarily be successful in boxing, but for people who want to chase their dreams but they feel they're being held back? What would your advice be to those types of people out there?
Well, I think firstly, what you see is not always what you get. You know, don't get me wrong, I love what I do, but everything comes with challenges in life. Yeah, it doesn't matter what you do. You have problems, you have, you know, ups, you have downs, you have your moments, and that comes across every single life. I mean, you know, when I talk about people like some people will look at AJ and say, God, he's got it all, hasn't he? Look at him, you know, world heavyweight champion, loads of money. But I might say, well, it's also might be quite a lonely life. You know, you're kind of restricted to doing normal things that a normal man like Anthony Joshua would like to do. He can't leave his house without people coming up to him, talking to him. He gives his time to everybody. Everyone wants a photo. Everyone wants him to sign that. Everyone wants an interview. Everyone wants an opinion. It's not an easy life. And others might say, oh, well, I'd give my life for that. Maybe you couldn't live that kind of life, you know? So my advice to people is just find something that puts a spring in your step and makes you happy. It doesn't have to be something that pays you 100 million a year. Like, that comes with its own pressures. That comes with its own risk. That comes with actually huge amount of pressures. People don't realise that. Just because people run successful businesses, just because people operate at the top level of a sport, that comes with pressure that some people could not handle. And I say, well, you know, money solves it. No, honestly, that's not the case. Obviously, money solves a lot of things, but it still comes with a lot of aggravation and stuff that you can't get out of on a day-to-day basis. So you just got to find something that gives you the passion to not give in or not break. So when things do get tough, you've got enough fight in you to say, I fucking love it. I love what I do. You know, I know it's tough today, but I don't care. I'm fucking, because otherwise it'll break you. If you don't love what you do and you're not enjoying it, eventually it'll wear you down and you'll combust. You know, and that's what you got to be careful in life. Nothing's easy. Nothing's easy, and that's the way it should be, because that's life.
Well, Eddie, you mentioned loving what you do. I think days like these for me make me love what I do. I don't know how. Just a little 18-year-old boy from Nottingham, and I've blagged it into the back of the car, doing sit-downs with you.
I've been blagging it for years, so just come along for the ride.
Eddie, I appreciate your time. Thank you for the interview, and we'll catch up again soon.